June 26, 2007, in Corpus Christi, Texas. Raw was live. I was sitting down with most likely a pizza in the oven, getting ready to watch some wrestling entertainment. But this night there was no matches. Wasn't even any soap opera bullshit. Just highlights of Chris Benoit and many heartfelt, sometimes teary-eyed stories about what a great man and wrestler he was. However, the next week, it said his name would never be mentioned again on WWE. So what happened? Well, let's put the Crippler crossface on this story and dive from the top ropes head first into the Canadian Crippler, Chris Benoit.
It's evil! Don't touch it!
It's alive!
I was with you.
They're coming to get you by the power of Christ. This is...
Hello, Mr. Fancy Pants.
Let me tell you something, Mean Spar.
Going right in.
Let me tell you something, buddy. I don't think I've fucking listened to wrestling since I was probably 13, 14 or something like that before. Since the last time I like seriously followed it.
Yeah, I used to be into it pretty hardcore for quite a while. I mean, we used to, as friends, get together just constantly on Monday nights. I mean, we used to go over to my Aunt Jude and Uncle George's house. And by the way, props to Jude because she's a huge fan of the show. So,
woohoo! Hey, Jude.
Thank you for having us over there. Thank you for having us idiots over to sit there and yell at the screen while we're watching wrestling. But
that's badass.
No, but it was back in the day, and I was a big fan of wrestling, and then anymore I don't care. I mean, it's almost got to the point where it's ridiculous. So,
well, if I want to watch some make believe shit, I'll watch Marvel movies. I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. So,
well, make believe, but it still hurts. It still hurts. Well, it used to be worse, and we'll get into that. But,
I'm sure we will. I just want you to know going into this that when I look at you and go, what? It's because I have absolutely no fucking clue what you're talking about. So
fair enough.
Don't hold it against me.
Fair enough. Who was your favorite wrestler when you was a kid?
Like way, way, way back in the day, I think you had to like Hulk Hogan. I mean,
oh yeah, for sure.
He was top dog, but like you still, I mean, like when I was watching, it was like you had Hulk Hogan, Randy Savage, and then what's the Warrior? What's that guy?
Oh yeah, the Ultimate Warrior.
The Ultimate Warrior, and then you had like Hacksaw Jim Duggan, Jake the Snake Roberts.
You didn't say Roddy Piper, who was my favorite. You didn't even mention him.
He was my favorite actor out of that group because they live as one of my favorite alien movies ever made.
Because we came here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
And I'm all out of bubblegum. That's right. I'm all out of bubblegum. It's good shit, dude. Well,
I will start this off with saying that Chris Benoit was not a big dude.
No, he was shorter, right?
Yeah, but from what I've seen, it was 5'11" to 5'8", but I know how wrestling works, so he was probably maybe 5'8".
I was going to say, I think he was 5'8". That's like everything that I saw. It said he was 5'8". So
yeah, but that's the promos. They always add an inch or two to their height and about 50 pounds to their weight.
Just like a porno, yeah. Add an inch or two, yeah.
That's how it goes. It all depends on how you shoot it. But his name was Christopher Michael Benoit, and he was born on May 21st, 1967. His father was Michael, and his mother was Margaret. Yeah,
Margaret.
Margaret. That's it. So at 12 years old, he got into wrestling because being in Canada, Stampede Wrestling was the shit up there.
Yeah.
This is where the wrestling went. And Dynamite Kid was a gigantic star.
Right.
He was huge.
He kind of emulated him, right? Like that was his 100%. Whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was his hero at the time, and that's what he wanted to be. He wanted to do that guy's moves, and for the time, that guy was innovative as hell because, you know, he's coming off the top ropes with headbutts. Those snap suplexes that Chris Benoit does later, those super fast, quick ones. That's
Right.
where it came from, because other people would like hold him up in the air to make a show of it. Chris Benoit was like, bam, just do it real quick. Just
Like a ninja.
yeah. So
Okay.
he
And
wanted-
that was Bret the Hitman Hart, but that was before he was Bret the Hitman Hart. That was that wrestling match, I believe, correct?
well, he got a job at the ring crew with Stampede, because back in the day, that's how you got into wrestling. It's not like today where you just, okay, today's wrestling fucking sucks, so I don't really want to talk about it. But back in the day, if you was a kid and you went in there and they're like, I want to be on part of the crew, and they were like, okay, set up these chairs. You set up these chairs, you sweep this, you clean up this, you go get stuff for these guys, but at
And you
least
work
you're
your way-
backstage and you're
You
part
work
of the
your way
show.
up. You work
Yeah,
your way
exactly.
up, just like anything else. Yeah, makes sense.
So once he got a job on the ring crew, he's like, well, I got to get into this. I got to get a little bit farther. So he trained at the Hart Mansion, which that would be where Bret the Hitman Hart, Owen Hart.
What was their
Jim
dad's
Mann,
name? What was their dad's name?
Stu.
Stu, and he was the one that like trained all these guys for the most part, correct?
Yeah, in the dungeon.
In the dungeon, yes, that's what they called it. And this guy was not a big dude, but I know that just from listening and doing a little research myself, he would make like 350 pound men. He would just make them bawl their eyes out because he'd just stretch them out.
That's what you do when you go in the dungeon. They beat you.
Yeah,
That was the whole point of the dungeon. It was like, the whole point of the dungeon was the first day that you come in, we are going to destroy you. We're going to break you, because we want to see if you'll come back. We want to see if you'll quit first. And if you quit, well, then you're out. And if you come back the next day, they'll be like, okay, you're in. Now we'll show you how to take the bumps, take the hits, and
makes sense.
figure it out.
You gotta weed out the pussies, Matt. You gotta weed them out.
And they certainly did. And back in the day, man, wrestling. Oh, yeah. If you didn't take a chair shot to the head without your hands to the side, you were a pussy. That's how it worked. And
Well, call me a pussy.
Oh, me too. I'm in. But no,
Not
that's the way.
gone dead.
That's the way it was. I mean, those weren't fake chairs like everybody said. Oh, wrestling's fake. Well, no. Well, it's fake in the way that it's set up to who's going to win, who's going to lose. But also,
The beating's real.
Yeah. So he trained at the Hart Mansion, and he took a bus every day to Calgary after school, every Friday after school, to go train there. And to train there, you just got the living shit kicked out of you every day. That was their training. It was
That's
like
it.
Yep. The first day you show up, they beat the shit out of you, and they want to see if you show up the next day. That's the first test.
Today,
Can you take
son, it's elbows. Tomorrow, it's headbutts. The day after that, it'll be knees.
Yeah, it's just Stu Hart stretching the shit out of you, beating the hell out of you, and then you come back the next day and he's like, "Hey, he wants to do this. Let's show him how to take bumps." And that's what he did. That's how he learned. Because
It takes some real dedication, but that's how you weed them out, you know?
yeah. I mean, this whole guy's life was wrestling. He just balls to the wall wrestling. This is all he wanted. This is all he wanted to do. This was it.
Yeah.
And started using steroids when he was in high school to get to look.
That's
he wanted
the
to
bad
look
thing.
like the Dynamite Kid.
Yeah.
They were both short. They weren't tall dudes. And to be in wrestling, you got to be big. He wanted to look like the Dynamite Kid, so it's just like, let's do it.
Dynamite!
That's the wrong Dynamite Kid.
I know, but still. Yeah.
So he made his first appearance in Stampede Wrestling on November 22nd, 1985.
And that was the Canadian version of, let's say, WCW, EWE, or I don't even, I don't know.
ECW. Yeah.
Well, I'm not hip on all the acronyms. I'm sorry. You have to leave me alone on that.
Back in the day when it was worth watching, there was territories. There were different territories of wrestlers. Now Vince McMahon owns it all, and it's not even fucking worth watching. But back in the day, yeah, there were different territories, and the wrestlers would travel from one territory to the other territory, and they'd wrestle, and they would actually wrestle, and it was fun to watch. Now,
okay, when you say they would actually wrestle, you mean they would have a match, and it was all probably still predetermined who was going to win.
100%, yes, yeah. Oh, yeah. It was all predetermined, but
it's all scripted. I mean,
yeah, but they were out there trying to put on a show. They wanted to, and one thing that a lot of people say stuff about Chris Benoit. Yeah, what he did at the end, fucking horrible piece of shit for doing what he did at the end. But his ring work, magic, so good. He made it look real. He could put you over if you come in the ring with him. He'll make it look real.
Yeah,
and if he didn't, he punished himself. Like freaking the Vice thing that I watched. The Dark Side of the Ring or whatever about him.
Yeah,
Chris Jericho would talk about. He was doing a match with him in Japan. I think it was in Japan. Well, we'll get into it where he goes, but he was doing a match with him in Japan, and Jericho went to make a kick on him, and Benoit moved too fast, and he didn't think he sold it. So he was mad at himself. So they get done with this match, which was like a super lengthy match. He comes backstage, and Benoit's just doing squats. Jericho's like, "What the fuck are you doing, man? We just had this long match." He goes, "No, I didn't sell that. I didn't hit my spot. I didn't do what I wanted to do. Now I got to do 500 squats."
He was his own football coach being like, "Bitch, you're going to run laps now." Yeah.
He was his own worst enemy the entire time of his life, I think.
I get that.
To push yourself to be that way.
I totally do. So I get it. It's the only way you get better.
No. So his very first match in Stampede Wrestling was in Calgary, and he won. He teamed with Rick Patterson versus Mike Hammer and Butch Moffat. It was the second match on the card that night, just a tag team match, and he won. So he's in Stampede Wrestling. He starts to get a name for himself. He's got a lot of people following him because they all like Dynamite as well. But he's doing the same stuff. He's real quick, he's fast. But when he walks to the ring, what's weird is when he walks to the ring, he looks like he's super freaking stiff. Like you don't think this guy's going to be able to move, but then he gets in the ring and he's so athletic. He makes stuff happen real quick. But in 1989, Stampede ended.
Yeah.
So at the end of it, he did have a match with Dynamite. He wrestled against this hero, and Dynamite gave him a pair of his boots.
That's pretty badass.
That would be, for your hero, it would be like, I don't know. It'd be like, I don't know. For me, I can't even imagine. Like Doyle giving me his guitar. Something like that.
Yeah. But, and I've seen that motherfucker just smash one on stage. So, yeah.
Yeah, but he's got other people making, not the ones he made. He won't smash the ones he made.
Oh, yeah.
Somebody else's.
Right.
Make it. But he goes to New Japan Pro Wrestling. And he does a year training in the dojo. So after he's in the dungeon, he goes to Japan. He spends a year in the dojo. This isn't fun. Man, if you're in Japan in the dojo for wrestling,
it's brutal.
Especially if you're
American.
You are running errands. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't have to wipe some of the guys' asses if they asked them to. It's just you clean this. It's just hazing. It's nothing but hazing. It's like, you want in on this?
I think this might be around that time. This is a live event in Thailand, I believe. So this would be around the same time. Is that right? Does that seem right?
Was he the Pegasus Kid here?
I believe so. This is from Bangkok.
That
Thailand.
picture?
This picture, yeah. This is earlier.
Well, I don't know.
So-
that looks later. Actually, I
Really?
don't know. That could, yeah. Well, he would go back and forth, but that looks later. He looks older in that picture. When he was the Pegasus Kid, he wore a mask for a little while, and he had a super mullet. But yeah,
he was like a luchador type wrestler for a long time. Yeah,
yeah, because he followed the Dynamite Kid, and that's where he got his diving off the top rope with the headbutt,
right?
Which will definitely come in later in his life. But and his super fast moves and just being one of the best technical wrestlers of all time, in my opinion. I do. He's right up there with Scott Hall. Of course, I love Scott Hall and Kevin Nash. We'll get to that later. So Pegasus Kid. So he's wearing a mask, so they don't really know who he is, but he's wrestling over in Japan. So in the early 90s, he meets Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and those dudes just instantly bonded. They were having matches, and if you go online, they called them the Three Amigos. If you go online and watch those matches with those guys wrestling, it looks so real. They're selling. They're putting each other over. Like every move is putting him over. They're selling it. It's like everything they do. And
they're doing their fucking job then, and that's what it's all about. So
yeah, and they became fast friends and stayed fast friends for the rest of their lives.
That's crazy.
Benoit goes to ECW, he goes to WCW, he goes to WWE. And here's a funny story because, like I said, I was a huge fan of the Outsiders. Like Kevin Nash and Scott Hall are my favorite wrestlers of all time. So,
sorry,
when it came
he was one of the Four Horsemen at some point, right?
Yeah, that's coming up. Yeah, that's coming up.
Okay,
yeah.
Okay.
He was kind of like their flunky at first, like their manager kind of dude, and then jumped in. But the Nash and Hall story that I was going to talk about is like, because when you move from wrestling organization to wrestling organization, that's when it was fun to watch wrestling. But now Vince McMahon owns it all, and it's no fun to watch it because who fucking cares? It's stupid. It's not even it's not even entertainment anymore.
Now, back in the day, it was WCW, right?
Well, yeah, you had WCW, and that was the Monday Night Wars.
Was that the one that was on Turner, that Turner owned?
Yep.
Okay. And then there was the ECW, right?
Yes, but then McMahon bought that too.
Right. And then McMahon had
into
WWF before he turned it into whatever it is, WWE.
WWE,
now,
yeah. Well, you had to, because it's not a sport; it's entertainment. That way, you don't have to test them for steroids because there's no way those guys are using steroids. You get that big
not
naturally. No one,
never.
So Nash and Hall story. This is way farther in the future. I'm just throwing this in here when I'm talking about leaving territories from back in the day, because like Hall is leaving WWE and he's going to WCW. He signs a contract for that amount of money.
Right.
Okay, this is what I'm guaranteed a year. And if somebody else comes in and makes more, you have to match it.
Or I'm out.
Well, it was just in the contract, so they had to match it. So he's great friends with Kevin Nash. So when Nash switches over to WCW, he's like, "Hey man, this is what I'm making. Ask for this."
Sounds like he had a little musician in him. It's like, I know so and so doesn't play for less than this, so fuck you. I ain't fucking playing.
Well, I mean, what are you gonna do? I mean, you guys are out there for each other. I mean, we gotta
brothers band together, and you gotta fucking watch each other's back.
You're one match away from somebody making a mistake and breaking your neck or hurting your back, and you're out. I would want to make as much money as possible.
You say out, I say fucking paralyzed for life. There's a huge difference between the two.
Happen.
But
it absolutely could happen. So
or just dying,
That happens too because it's coming up, and I was actually watching it live when it happened. So,
oh God,
Chris Benoit gets married to a woman named Martina, and they have 2 kids, Megan and David. Okay, so
Yeah.
they stayed married for a while, long enough to have 2 kids, but she's staying in Canada and he's out on the road wrestling all the time, and he's a wrestler.
And it's like being a musician, and that's a hard life to live on both sides of that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, if I had to guess, it's harder for somebody staying at home, taking care of the kids and not knowing what you're doing, even though they've got these responsibilities and you're out on the road, get to do.
And you're doing your own responsibilities at the same time, but to trust that person when they're gone at least 5 days a week,
it's going to be rough.
300 days a year. Yeah.
And keep in mind the whole time we go through this story that Benoit is just so hard on the steroids, so hard on him, because he's scared he's going to lose weight. Like, he wants to stay as big as he can. He even did this thing called bee stinging later in his life, where if he needed to take some time off to recuperate for something and get back in, it's just like you just pump as much as you can and you'll just blow up quicker.
Oh,
yeah. His whole life. From the time he was in high school until he died, it was nothing but he would not stop steroids, because he thought, if I let this go, I'll lose some of my bulk. I won't be a wrestler anymore. That's what he lived for.
That's sad.
So he meets Nancy Sullivan. So Nancy Elizabeth, I'm going to do my best. Tofilani? Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Tofilani. I think
It's a meat.
Tofilani.
She's a spicy meatball.
And she was fantastic, actually, as it goes in wrestling. She opened up the door for so many people. It was so good. But she was born on May 17th, 1964. And she lived in Florida. It got work as a model and then got into the wrestling business. So there was a magazine called Wrestling All-Stars that wanted to have some pictures with her. And then there were things in the back of the magazine. You know, like the comic books we used to read where you buy the sea monkeys.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, these were apartment wrestling ads. So apartment wrestling is you pay for this girl to come over and wrestle you, and then she'll bring a friend and wrestle her. I'm sure there was no. Let's move along. Nothing happened other than wrestling in a room.
There was no hanky panky.
I'm sure some of them fuck people if they got enough money, but okay. So she met Kevin Sullivan, and it took some time, but he convinced her to join up in the wrestling, because once she got into the wrestling stuff, she was like kind of getting into it. She was like doing this or that for the wrestling. And Kevin Sullivan was the devil in wrestling.
But he wasn't really the devil. It's just like his act, right?
No, I'm pretty sure he was the devil. I don't think he was. Well, I was a kid at the time. He was definitely the devil.
Well, I'm pretty sure Ben Franklin's the devil.
Oh, you nailed it. Okay. Oh, can we not? Okay. So he convinced Nancy to join his group and called her the Falling Angel. So she
That's
joins
pretty
up.
badass, man. Yeah.
Yeah. She becomes like door opener. I mean, you wouldn't have. I think they called them valets then, but then they was called managers.
I want to say it's the only way I can explain it to anybody that would know anything about wrestling, it would be like it's Miss Elizabeth to Macho Man.
Yeah, and this will no.
She basically comes down to the ring, brings them into the ring, and then fucks with the match if they're losing.
Well, that's not true. Miss Elizabeth was like one of the Dante girls. He was like, Elizabeth down that aisle. You know, he would say that, and she would just do what he said.
That's fucking good, by the way. Oh, yeah. Down that aisle, yeah.
Fallen Angel, she would yell at you. She was a proper, once again, valet, they called him, and then manager later. And now you don't even have it, because if you're a woman in wrestling, you have to wrestle. They don't want you on the side. I don't know. Who cares?
Unless your name's China, and then you get booted out, and then you have to go do porn, and then you die from a drug overdose. Yeah. Anyway, moving on.
Those things happen in wrestling. I mean, I'm going to get into it. I mean, I promise you, I'm going to get into it.
It's a hard night life.
So she gets into this, and just once she joins Sullivan's group, she just starts blowing up on the scene. Like, everybody loves her. She ends up valeting for Ric Flair.
Oh, wow.
And, like, so many other people. Even Sandman. She goes to ECW, and she's Sandman's manager, which Sandman was a crazy motherfucker. If you never watched ECW, dude, that guy was nuts. It was so
She's
good.
hot. She's hot, is what you're telling me. She's hot.
Oh, she's super good looking. Yeah. Okay. She was super good looking. And she was married at this time to her high school sweetheart, Jim Alsey, I think.
Alsey? Alsey?
Deuce?
Yeah. How do you spell it? Just spell it.
It doesn't even matter.
Okay.
The dude's gone because she falls in love with Kevin. She falls in love with Kevin Sullivan, and she gets married to Kevin Sullivan in 1992. And they bounce around to different organizations, and she follows him. They go to WCW from like 1989 to 1990, where she changes her name from Fallen Angel to Woman.
That's kind of a step down. Like, not Hot Woman or The Woman or quotations. Just Woman.
She actually
Woman!
she loved it.
All right. Well, whatever, man.
If you watch her persona, she was, you're going to answer to me. I'm going to make you do whatever I want, and I'm in charge here, and I'm going to take whatever I need. So,
right on.
And then, once again, when they left WCW, they did time in ECW. That's when she managed the Sandman, and they went back to WCW. Once again, you're bouncing back and forth. Whoever's going to pay you the money, that's where you're going.
Sign the contract until it's over, and then go find more money. Yep.
And at this time, Kevin Sullivan was a wrestler with WCW, but he was also part of the booking team and storyline writer.
Booking is storyline. Is that correct?
Well, booking is getting the wrestlers in. Storyline is writing the
bullshit
script for the show. Yeah. And the relationship was going downhill. There was even some talk of her abusing him abusing her. There was one story that she stabbed him because she went to jail in Florida for 3 days until he came and bailed her out because she had stabbed him. So, well, I don't know. I don't know if it actually happened. These are things. Once again, Vice. I was watching Vice. So if you disagree with it, you yell at Vice.
All right. I was going to say, I did a little research. I didn't hear anything about no bitch stabbing nobody. So it was crazy shit.
There's records of it at least being charged.
But we're talking like,
and then
he
didn't press charges.
We're talking like 80s, right?
No, this would have been the 90s. Yeah, this would have been the 90s, like, when they left.
So, but it still could have been influenced by some cocaine. Something could be
most likely.
Yeah.
Somas and booze and cocaine, and that's what makes it. That's what made wrestling good. You had to bring it up, didn't you? Now wrestling sucks. Wrestling's shit right now because they get off stage and they go back and they take a shower and they put their fucking suits on and open up their laptops and check out how everything's going on the stock market.
Let's check my stocks and my Bitcoin. Let's see what's going on.
You know what you should be doing? Jumping in a car with 4 other dudes and 4 cases of beer, 2 pounds of blow, and 4 strippers. That's a wrestler.
You say midget strippers, and then we got a deal.
That's what it was worth watching. Okay. So after the stabbing, I guess their relationship's kind of going downhill.
Right.
And Chris is on the rise, man. He's coming up. Benoit's coming up. He becomes part of the Four Horsemen. He's not initially a member. He becomes a member later with Ric Flair, Arn Anderson, Ole Anderson, and Tully Blanchard, I think, leaves. But Sullivan has an idea for Chris because he likes Chris because they're about the same size.
Yeah.
Height-wise. I mean, Sullivan at this time is getting a bit pudgy because he's getting older, but Chris is still just a freaking...
Young, dumb, and full of cum. Got it.
Yeah, he's ready to rock and roll. So he has an idea for Chris. This is the gimmick they're going to run. This is how they're going to do it. And it's going to involve his wife. So he wants Chris to take Nancy away from him. And they went so far as to like film them. They wanted them to travel together. They wanted them to stay in the same, like,
so he was, like sleep in the same hotels, go be seen eating together. Cause he's old school. He's an old school wrestler. He wants to stay.
He wants to sell it.
Stay in character 24/7.
Yeah. You gotta put it up. You gotta push it over. You gotta sell it, and you gotta make sure people believe it. Cause that was the thing.
Wow.
So
sounds to me like he's just trying to push his wife away. To me,
that's what ends up happening. Yes, but Chris didn't like it at the beginning. Benoit didn't like it because his wife at the time had just given birth to their daughter, and they had a kid. And he's like, "I'm on the road, and she's at home taking care of these kids. And if I'm putting this on TV, I know it's supposed to be fake." But what if she's seeing it and thinks it's real and it's going to bother her?
Right.
He didn't like it. And that was one of the problems with Benoit. As far as
how much did he not like it? How much did he not like it, Matt?
Oh, I think he ended up really liking it at the end, but but at the time I think he was like, I didn't want to do this, but they did, and then they started having...
Until he said, I can't fight this feeling anymore.
You're going REO on me?
Fuck yeah. I forgotten what I started fighting for.
Look at my acoustic. Hang on. I'll be right back. Let's do this.
Shit.
Well, the thing about Benoit was, he was never my favorite wrestler. He was never a guy that I was like, can't wait to see this guy. But every time he walked down the ramp, I was like, fuck, this is going to be a good match.
Yeah.
This is going to be good. I knew it was going to look real because even if the person he wasn't fighting couldn't sell it, Benoit could put you over. He was going to make it look real. It was going to happen. So it was like every time he came down, I'm like, yeah. Not a big dude, but I loved it. And then, okay, so
he could put on a show. He could put on a show.
Yeah, he sold it every time.
Yeah.
So Chris divorces his wife. Nancy divorces Kevin, which they're together now. So everything's good.
So
right? Just holy matrimony. It's so good. Thing is Chris and Kevin still have to work together, which is a little awkward. So they still had matches together, but they did. Chris did say later that Kevin kept it professional because he didn't want to receive a receipt from Benoit. I'll tell you that. There's no way you want to get a receipt from Benoit. That dude was just freaking.
Yeah.
So if you don't know what a receipt is, that's a wrestling term for if you're in the ring with somebody and they hit you a few times too hard, you come back at them and hit them really hard somewhere just to let them know, hey, calm the fuck down or I'm going to keep doing it too. This is going to get real fast.
Right.
So that's what a receipt is. And then 1997, Bash at the Beach. Benoit beats Sullivan in a retirement match.
And he already knew he was retiring and
Sullivan was in charge of it, basically.
Yeah. He wrote it all, correct? He wrote the whole story for it. Yeah.
No, he was fine with it. He wants out. He's going to write the stories now. But at this time, Benoit's like, okay, now he's just backstage pulling the ropes. He's going to be in charge of all the things that are going on, and starting to think he wants to get out. But he does end up letting him have a shot at the title. So Nancy leaves WCW and Benoit stays on, but he could never hit the ceiling. He's a small dude. If you back in this time, if you weren't, I don't know, 7 foot, you weren't.
Oh, let's go 6'4". Let's just say 6'4".
Well, did I already cover his height? Because I heard 5'8".
No. Yeah. I heard 5'4" to 5'8".
Yeah, I even heard 5'11", and I'm like, no. But
short dude.
So he wants to take his 3 friends with him, but so the 3 amigos set to leave. They want to leave, and they're going to go somewhere else. But Sullivan did allow Benoit to win the heavyweight championship. Let him win it. To say, I think it was a way of saying, "Hey, man,
no hard feelings.
No hard feelings.
Yeah.
Just here's the title belt." But he was also like,
"Get the fuck out."
He's going to try to fuck me constantly. The next day they leave, and he leaves with Eddie Guerrero, Dean Malenko, and Perry Saturn. The day
I
after
recognize.
winning.
I recognize Guerrero. I recognize Malenko. I recognize those names from WWF, WWE, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, okay.
Perry Saturn was he was a big dude. He's a big buff, bald dude with like a Fu Manchu and a bunch of tattoos all over.
Okay.
He was a good wrestler. I enjoyed some of his matches when I watched him. But so he goes to WWE. And Nancy's at home pregnant with their first child, Daniel Christopher Benoit. And he was born on February 25th, 2000.
Okay.
And life is going good because he's getting pushed hard in WWE. Man, they're, like I said, they took the microphone from him because this guy couldn't.
He was no Hulk Hogan. He was no Macho Man. He was just like, I'm going to go beat him up. He wasn't like, oh, yeah, let me tell you, Mean Gene. I'm going to destroy this man. I'm going to take his pinky. I'm going to break every bone in it. And then I'm going to work my way up his arm. And then I'm going to work my way down his spine.
You got it. He couldn't flow like that. Like some of the good ones, like Rowdy Piper is one of my favorites as far as off the cuff. And today it's all scripted. You just say whatever they want you to say, and that's why it's so.
Yeah.
But,
fucking jabronis.
The Rock. So, but all right, great father, good husband at this point.
Right. He's doing his due diligence. Yep.
And he worked himself so far that he got to challenge The Rock at Fully Loaded for the championship title, heavyweight championship title, which he shouldn't have even been going for because he weighed like 75 pounds more than he should have without the steroids for his height.
Right. And then The Rock is like 6'4"? No. 6.
Is he that tall?
He's fucking like 6. He's a fucking Samoan, dude. Yeah, he's like 6. He's a huge
I was thinking
dude.
he was 6'2". I couldn't remember. I just remember, like when I was young and I'd watch Scott Hall walk down the ramp with Kevin Nash, and I thought, well, Scott Hall's a regular dude. He's just a regular height dude. No, Scott Hall's 6'8". Just Kevin Nash is so fucking tall. It's crazy. Yeah. So, got it. And then he's guaranteed $400,000 a year. But that's without the bonuses. That's without the merch. He's got up to where
he's top tier at this point.
Well,
top of the tier. Let's put it that way.
He's in the top tier. He's just low in the top tier.
He's over the 75 percentile reign.
Oh yeah, he's
Let's
been
call
over. Yeah, he's definitely over.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so Chris and Nancy get married November 23rd of 2000. Everything's going good.
Yeah.
Everything seems to be going good. This dude does nothing but fucking work. Work.
Yeah.
He wants wrestling as his life. So at WrestleMania 20, he wins the heavyweight championship for the first time and only time.
Right.
He straps Triple H in the crossface, and Triple H taps out. Eddie joined him in the ring afterwards because Eddie had defended his title against Kurt Angle when Kurt Angle went to put him in the ankle lock and Eddie's boot slipped off and he came around, threw him in a sweet roll-up pin shit. I remember watching it, sorry. But
No ideas. I have no idea. No idea.
No, I
wasn't
remember
there.
watching it live. I was like, whoa, shit, yeah, go. Okay. So they're standing in the ring together while this confetti's falling down. Eddie comes out there. He's holding up his Intercontinental Championship belt. Benoit's got the Heavyweight Championship belt. Best of friends. Been best of friends for so long. They're sitting there hugging each other in the ring. So looking at it now, it's pretty sad. But at the time, I was like, this is amazing. Because at the time, I didn't know how good of friends they were. But it seems like everything's great.
Probably the highlight of both of their careers right there.
No, that's it. Yeah, that's
the peak.
That is the peak. You have reached the pinnacle that they're going to allow you to get. You are not big enough, and that was the thing with both Eddie and Chris. You're not big enough to hold that belt for too
long. Yeah,
Eddie could talk though. Eddie could talk. He was great when he was on the mic. Chris just couldn't do it, so it was like, well,
you got to just get it. Yeah, it is what it is.
Shut up and wrestle, and then that's all you're going to get. Because if you give him the mic, it's going to sound terrible, like it did in the. There's past videos you can watch, but okay. So, May 12th, 2003, Nancy had started the divorce proceedings.
Oh wow! Okay.
Yeah, so things weren't going as well at home as what everybody thought, and on May 15th, she filed for temporary protection order for 6 months because of abuse.
Okay.
Apparently, Benoit was throwing shit around the house. Whenever he got upset, he would lose his mind. Well, you got to think, what are we pulling on now? Like 20 years of
steroid abuse,
steroids, painkillers, Somas, booze. That's why so many wrestlers died young back then.
They still do, buddy. They still
do. And we'll get into some of that. But so after she files this, Benoit's unable to contact her or his son and has to pay $5,000 a month for child support. Now, during this time, he got a DUI. I think that was like most things. I think that was like the most thing that he got, but he was parked outside of his ex-wife's house, or the house that they used to live in. Just passed out in the car. What the fuck are you doing there, man?
Maybe, I'm guessing, got drunk, started reminiscing about old times, and like, maybe I fucked up.
Yeah, maybe thought, oh, things will be better if I go back to this, or whatever's going on in his head, because later on, nobody knows. So, after the DUI and stuff like that, and she had filed for the temporary protection order, on the day that she went in to extend it, they walked in holding hands. Because everything's fine now. It's going to be good.
That Benoit cock must be some seriously nice stuff.
He goes after that like he goes after wrestling, apparently. He's just delivering because she drops the divorce proceedings and everything. It's just done.
Wow.
So here's some rough shit because I remember watching this live, but on November 13th in 2005 in a Minneapolis hotel room, Eddie Guerrero was found by Chavo Guerrero, his nephew,
Yeah.
They went into Chavo's room and they started knocking on it and they said, "Hey, you got to get out here because there's something wrong with your uncle." And he's like, "Well, what's wrong with him?" It's like, "We don't know. He didn't answer his wake-up call. We went and knocked on the door. He won't answer, but the chain's locked from the inside, and we need somebody with us
To open it.
cut that lock to get in there." So Chavo runs in, and Eddie's laying in the bathroom with a toothbrush in his hand while Chavo grabs him and holds him in his arms as he said he was making gargling sound. You know,
He's dead, basically.
Yeah, he was dying.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And,
he holds
and
his
it was it
death
like
rattle.
yeah, brain
He got
brain damage. Yeah.
well,
Due to multiple concussions over and over.
It would have been CTE, drug abuse, and alcohol, and all of it together.
Yeah. For years and years and years and years and years. Yeah.
Yeah, nonstop. But so here's the part where things go bad for Chris, because up until this point, up until the final thing, everybody thought Chris Benoit was like the greatest dude ever. He was quiet. He was a nice dude, good to everybody. When he was in the ring, he was aggressive as shit. Like, once again, you don't want to get a receipt from him, but he was a good dude.
He did his job.
Yeah. Chavo calls Benoit, and what he says that he from a normally quiet man, he just said he heard it was like a wail of.
His best friend died. Yeah, just one of his best.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
we know how that goes.
Fuck yeah, we do.
Cheers, man.
Yeah, I'm tired of losing best friends. But it was like a wail of tears, and he would come over, and there were stories from Guerrero's wife where Benoit would just come over just to hang out, and then they were like, "Where's he at?" They were like, "We don't know where he's at." He would be up in their bed, laying on Eddie's side of the bed, just like
clutching his pillow,
squeezing the pillow, crying.
Yeah.
Or be up in his gym, just sitting on the bench, just bawling. So
I can totally relate to that part of this story.
I get it.
Yeah.
I absolutely get that too. The Raw, and here's another thing with Benoit. He was never given time to deal with anything. It was,
you got to be back. Nope. You got to be back on Monday Night Raw.
Let's get to wrestling, man. And that he didn't want to let anybody down. He wanted to go back to doing what he was doing, even though he couldn't
process anything.
He couldn't process it in his head. Okay. So that Raw, after Eddie died, Benoit, he was broken. It was just, he tried to talk. He couldn't. He was bawling. I remember watching it. He would say some things, and then his head would be out of screen, and then he would just get up and walk away. And he was trying to do this. He was trying to do that.
Yeah.
So what Eddie's wife did, she's like, "Well, here's a journal." She's like, "Write to Eddie in this." And they said after that, he started to come out of it a little bit, because he was like sitting down,
processing it. Yeah.
Yeah. He was trying to. But the day after Eddie's funeral, he's on a plane. Back to work.
Yep.
Gotta go to England. We gotta wrestle. Yep. Let's do it. So here's a list of just a few. This is just a few of the friends of him and of Chris and his wife's friends that I could find. So on October 1997, Brian Pillman died at the age of 38. He was one of the original Four Horsemen.
Right. I remember that.
May 1999, Owen Hart. We was watching this pay-per-view when this happened, because it just went black screen.
Yeah. He was the blue what? The blue
Blazer. He was Owen Hart, but he was also the Blue Blazer, and he was supposed to be lowered down as the Blue Blazer, and
his cable snapped, right?
Well, I don't think the cable snapped. I think just nothing stopped it. I think it just rolled because he bounced his head off the turnbuckle as he was coming down and snapped his neck.
Because Vince McMahon was too fucking lazy to hire a union guy to do the fucking work. That's what I heard.
Vince McMahon's a piece of shit. Yeah. Don't think I'm going to argue with you on that. No, that guy's a fucking asshole. He was only 34 fucking years old.
That's sad.
May 2002, the British Bulldog Davy Boy Smith died from a heart attack at 37.
I'm going to go steroids, cocaine.
Well, was it? Well, yeah. Well, it was all Somas. That's how you did it back in the day. You wrestled, then you was on Somas. You was popping them to stay awake.
So you can drive.
Maybe the Somas was put you to sleep. It was booze and Somas all the time anyway. It didn't matter.
Yeah.
It was like you had to stay awake for the match. You had to be live. You had to be in charge. You had to be ready to go, and then you had to drive. But then you had to sleep. And now at this point, you have to take something to go to bed.
Right.
So you take something to go to bed, and then you get up.
And then you got to take more.
Gym.
Yeah.
Steroids, gym.
Uppers and downers constantly. It's so bad on your heart. Yeah.
Yeah, and your heart's like, what do you want me to do? Okay, I'll just explode.
Yeah.
So that's
what happened.
That works. So the British Bulldog dies. Also in 2003, this hit hard because Kurt Hemming died. Hawk from the Road Warriors died. Stu Hart died, and Miss Elizabeth died. And Miss Elizabeth's story is pretty tragic because she was with Lex Luger. Man, that story's some shit. Might have to get into that at a different time because that could be lengthy.
I was gonna say I don't know anything about it, so let's move it along.
All right. Okay. So September 2004, Ray Traylor, who was the big boss man, dies at 41.
Yeah.
Mike Johnny Durham, 39. He was part of Public Enemy, and he was a close friend and family. He was close friends to those guys, and he lived near them. It would be one of those dudes like whenever Chris and his wife were in a fight, she would call him. He'd come over
and mediate.
He could kind of, dude, remember this or whatever, and get him chilled out and to the point.
Motherfucker, you need to pull your fucking head out of your ass.
Yeah,
I get it. Yeah,
I don't know if he went about it. In any way,
he was taller, so I'm gonna go with that. Yeah,
he was a big dude. He was definitely a big dude. But in the months before, what ends up happening? Chris loses.
What did he quit wrestling?
No, actually, until the final days, I think he was considering still wrestling, which is fucking awful. But
he didn't want to hang out.
He started getting super paranoid, man. Like they was talking about like going to the gym. Like he would take different routes to get to the gym because he thought people were following him or switching cars.
That's kind of fucked up.
Because he thought his family was being stalked by an unknown entity, which is pretty terrifying with the entity part. But other than that, it makes me think of like the end of Goodfellas. You know, he's like, you see that helicopter? See that helicopter? It'll follow me all day.
Fucking Kaiser Sose shit, huh?
But yeah, so oh my goodness. So he gets to the point where he doesn't want his wife to leave the house. He doesn't want his boy to go to school.
Sounds like a paranoid kid. Sounds like paranoid schizophrenia to me.
Yeah, most likely. Yeah, almost 100%. I would think.
Yeah, but is it drug induced? Do you think?
I do. Yeah, I do. I think you can't mix that many drugs together for so long and not think something's going to happen. I mean,
right.
I mean, I've known.
how old is he at this point? Is he even 40 yet, or it's early 40s?
He's early 40s if he's 40 at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, he might be 40. But either way, it's just I know I have known people in my life that I wouldn't have thought they would have done what they did, but then you find out that they were prescribed a different medication, and then they took it, and then things went bad.
Real fast.
Yeah.
Usually real fast. Yeah.
It's like, man, you can't predict what the fuck's gonna happen with that. You just have no idea.
Yeah. You either see it right off the bat and somebody calls you on it, or shit goes really bad real fast. That's usually how that works.
Yeah. So he wants to move. Chris is wanting to move. He's so paranoid. He thinks something's going to happen to his kids. He thinks something's going to happen to his wife. He's so terrified that something's going to happen. Okay. Because he was never the same after Eddie. And then all these other guys, he's done. Most people, like Chris Jericho was one of the dudes. I love Chris Jericho as a wrestler, and as a band, Fozzy. He's got a podcast. So do it if you don't, but he's just a good dude, and he's fucking straight up and honest, and he'll just tell you what he thinks.
Yeah.
But they moved to Fayetteville, Georgia, and they buy a $900,000 house because there's a super low crime rate there. They don't sell their old house. They didn't even wait to sell it. No, they didn't wait to sell it. It's for sale. But he's like, fuck it, I got money. Let's go. We're moving here. They buy 2 big German Shepherds to,
guard dogs, basically.
Just to guard the place because he's so on edge. Here's a bit of shit, in my opinion. He was sent to ECW because this is after Vince McMahon owns all of it. He owns...
Okay, so ECW was a separate entity prior to this stuff, and then basically Ed McMahon being the monopolizer that he is, he decides to buy. Oh, I'm sorry.
What's it? Vince McMahon.
What did I say? What did I say? Oh my God!
You said Ed McMahon, so I said
that's
Jim
why.
McMahon.
Well, that's wild and crazy stuff.
Yes, sir. Sorry about that.
We're talking about Vince. Yeah, he owns it all now. It's like there's no competition, so there's no really reason to watch it anymore. It's fucking garbage. But what was you saying? Go ahead.
So he buys everything out, and then so now he has like multiple tiers that he can set these guys out on.
Exactly. Yeah.
And is it possible that maybe Chris was like, well, fuck, I'm not top tier anymore, and he's fucking paranoid about that, and that what the fuck's going to happen? Do you think that's a possibility?
I don't know if that was the way it worked. I know that like Vince would have wanted to keep like the top tier guys at the top place, but he was going to definitely take like big name dudes, drop them in the lower places, just try to get the views up.
Gotcha.
Because at this time, ECW was the lowest. It's not even around anymore. It was the lowest thing that they had, but he was sent down there. But Benoit didn't care. He was like, as long as I'm wrestling, I don't give a shit. So on June 24th, he was supposed to beat CM Punk for the ECW title, but he didn't show up.
Okay.
Which is unlike him. They said,
so why didn't he show up?
He wasn't there.
Just no show, huh?
Yeah, no show, no call, man. But Dr. Phil Aston had given Benoit his prescriptions for a long time and been well over prescribing them. He ends up doing time later for how much over prescribing he did.
He done not necessarily for Chris's prescription, but for other prescriptions, correct?
Many other wrestlers would.
Yeah.
They would take flights out of town just to get to him to get the prescriptions because the wellness
this guy was
shit.
This guy was probably in Vince's back pocket. This is the guy probably Vince would send everybody to.
I don't think Vince had anything to do with this. I think this was just this dude was like, no, send me all the wrestlers. They're going to pay extra money for this, and I'm going to ride it. This dude was just like, yeah, bring it. Let's have it.
Yeah, money in my pocket.
Yeah, and he put him on Zoloft, which once again, like I said, I know people that you put on medication that way, and shit goes.
Oh yeah,
crazy.
And Zoloft is one of those drugs that you either take to it or you don't, and you know right away.
Yeah, but you're giving it to a guy that's been so hardcore on painkillers, steroids, and booze for 20 years.
20 years, yeah.
It's just, who knows what's going to happen. So,
well, what happens, Matt? What happens, Matt?
Nothing.
Did you just hang out?
Nothing good.
Right.
He talked to Bob Holly, invited him over.
Who's Bob Holly?
You don't remember Bob Holly, hardcore Holly from wrestling? He wasn't around. He wasn't around for a long time, but he was a friend of Benoit's, close friend, and he happened to be close to town and was talking to him. And so Benoit was like, well, come on over. And Holly was like, man. He's like, you need some time away. He thought to himself, he's like, I'll give him some time away with his family. I just won't go over there. I don't want to remind him of a wrestling business. Give him some time to relax. And then Bob blamed himself later for not going.
Yeah.
So
blamed himself for what, Matt?
Well, he thinks things might have turned out different if he would have showed up. Anyway, he spoke to Chavo Guerrero quite a bit, and there's a lot of phone records of this.
Which would be Eddie Guerrero's nephew, correct?
Yes. And at 9:25, there was a call from their house for the police. There was another call at 9:32. There was another call at 9:33, and there was another call at 10 to a neighbor. There were no messages left. Nobody answered these calls. It's just on the phone bills that these calls were made. So speculation is that Nancy made them. Because Nancy was found with her hands and feet bound by tape, and a phone cord was around her neck. The bruising that showed up on her seemed like she had been beat up quite a bit, and then in the way that she was found, seems like there was a knee put to her back, and he just
choked her out,
pulled the phone cord, and killed her.
Jesus Christ.
He wrapped her in a blanket and put a Bible next to her body. And she was 43 years old. The next morning at 8:30 a.m., he called the next door neighbor to see if his son still had his horse camp, which he had signed him up for earlier, and told the lady that he wouldn't be in that day because he was sick, because he had food poisoning. But what really happened to his son was he gave him some of the Xanax that he was prescribed, and while his son was completely asleep underneath Xanax, he choked him to death with his own hands.
Why do you always fucking pick shit like this, dude?
Don't think it made me happy reading that. I wanted to talk about the wrestling stuff. This part's what sucks. He put a Bible next to him too. One of the sickest things that I seen was there was a butcher knife underneath the bed. Of course, he didn't have to use it, but it was there.
So that was backup plan.
That was backup plan. Yeah. If he didn't think he could get through with the choke, and he was gonna. So
I'd rather talk about the nipple belts than this shit right now.
Yeah. Well, and Chris is answering phone calls, man. Benoit's answering phone calls. He's answering some texts. Here's a search on his computer that comes up from the Bible about resurrecting people from the book of Elijah. I think he got to a point where he was like, you know what? I really fucked up real bad there. And then he found a book in the Bible talking about resurrecting a boy. I think he thought
he could bring him back.
Maybe I could bring back my son from the fuck up that I did. Like the drugs went in and out, or he went in and out, and finally got to the point of thinking, hey, maybe I can fucking do this. Maybe I can bring him back. Maybe to fix his mistake. And fuck, I don't.
I can't imagine why. I mean, the only reason I can imagine wanting to kill his son is just because he knew that
he was going to go.
Yeah, he was, and he was going to be given up. You know, I mean, that's the only thing I can justify him doing that, because I cannot. You know, you've mentioned this several times before in other podcasts, but like, you know, we think about our kids. God,
yeah,
how the fuck could you do that? How the fuck can you do that?
Well, you can't be you. And that's what everybody said. It was like, that wasn't him. I don't
care how much I'm not me. I could never do that.
I get it. I get it too.
I would put a bullet in my own fucking brain before I ever got to that point. You know, that's the scary part about all of that.
So his wife's dead on Friday night. I think his son died on Friday night as well. So there's like 3 days he's in this house.
Just with his dead kid and his dead wife? Yeah.
And he's still on the phone trying to figure out wrestling stuff. So he's not out of his mind. He still knows what he did was wrong and still trying to cover it, because he calls Chavo, tells him he can't make this show because Nancy and Dan were sick with food poisoning. He's like, they're sick with food poisoning. He even tells people later that he had to take him to the hospital, but he tells Chavo in this phone call that he loved him. Chavo's like, yeah, man, okay, love you too.
Didn't Chavo specifically say that this was a weirder phone call though? And he said it's like the way he said it.
Yeah, he did.
Was different. That like it was like a goodbye.
Well, later, hindsight being what it is, that's when he put it on. But when he initially heard it, he was just like, it was weird.
Yeah.
But he told him, he's like, oh, okay, you can't make the house show, no big deal, but we got a pay-per-view. You got to be there. And there were actually phone calls made
from WWE. Yeah.
Thinking, man, can I get away with it? Can I go make one of these shows? Which was ridiculous. Okay, so here's some text that were sent. These are the actual, I wrote down word for word the text that were sent, because Chavo Guerrero and Scott Armstrong was a ref, and they were driving crew with Benoit. They would meet up, get your plane, you drive to the show.
So these guys were probably the tightest knit group.
Yeah.
Like together. So yeah.
Yeah. And these texts came from 3:51 to 3:58 a.m. Like Chavo got it, said he read it, and he was just like, I don't know. I don't need to know where to pick you up, dude.
Now, to put this in context, this was probably this is before iPhones, and this is, you know, sometimes
flip phones. I'm assuming.
So when Chavo got
iPhones at this time, this was 2008. This is 2007.
But still,
2008. They have 2007.
But you were still getting
iPhones anyway.
Well, yeah. So, but if you weren't on an iPhone, sometimes, I don't know if you remember this, but like in the early texting days, when you got a text, sometimes you get it fucking 3 days after the fact.
That's very true. And that happens today too. So I don't know why I was arguing with you. Hell yeah, that stuff happens. It depends on where you're at, what you're doing.
He could have, when he first got this text, I'm assuming it's like, you know, the first one, I would have been like, what the fuck? You know, like, okay, well, yeah, I know where you live, motherfucker. You know, am I supposed to pick you up? I get that part. So maybe really unassuming on that first one.
But
So when it comes through 2 and 3 times,
yeah, well, he sent it. He had sent it to Chavo, and Chavo had read it, and then he got another message, and I'll read both of them. They're fairly short, but these are the exact message. I wrote them down word for word from what I seen from Vice. And so the next morning he wakes up, he talks to Scott. He's like, "Did you get any weird texts from Chris last night?" He's like, "Yeah," but they were the exact same text. So they got the exact same text. So the first text, the dogs are enclosed in the pool area garage. Side of the door is open. The next one, my physical address is 130 Green Meadow Lane, Fayetteville, Georgia, 30215. So he left those messages to a few people. So it took a while.
yeah,
Because they were trying to cover for him, is what they were. That's what Chavo said. So they were trying to cover for him because he wasn't going to show up for the pay-per-view. He wasn't there for the pay-per-view. Well, you're not going to roll on your friend. You know what I mean?
No.
You're not going to roll on him.
You cover for your boy.
You're going to go with the fact that his wife and kid had food poisoning and fuck off. He's got stuff to do. It's just, but that's not how it worked out. So, what Chris Benoit did after he did the most unthinkable shit that you could possibly imagine somebody doing was Google some shit about how to break your neck as fast as possible and as painless as possible. And he went downstairs to his gym. He took...
Where he spent his whole fucking life, by the way.
Yeah, by the way, just brutally beat and killed his wife and then smothered his boy while he was asleep. But he wrapped a blanket, or he wrapped a towel around his neck before he put the cord around it so it wouldn't hurt him so bad. He was trying to find a way out of it quick. Fucking cunt. So now I look back and I'm thinking, I wish, and I can't take away every time you wrestled that I thought it was great, but God, I fucking hate you. Yeah. And so he killed himself.
Basically used his weight bench to...
He used his weight bench. He added extra weight to it, removed the pin, hung himself. I think they said it was
pretty much instantaneous.
245 pounds. I hope it wasn't instantaneous. I hope he suffered for a while. But the pay-per-view goes on, and at 12:45 p.m., a welfare check is sent to his house by Vince McMahon.
But no. They sent the neighbor over, right?
No, they actually called in. Well, the neighbor wanted to come over, but she got texted. It was all of this is so fucking combobulated. I don't know how much of this.
I was gonna say I've heard like 3 different stories. So
yeah. So I'm going with what I'd read and what I'd seen, and there was so much, like, I didn't want to get into all these texts and phone calls and shit because it was just too much. I've been like, this would have been like a 3 episode. I go, all this shit. Still got another page of this motherfucker. Okay,
let me tell you something, Gene.
Tell me, Gene. God rest his soul. I love him.
He's a good man.
Okerlund.
Yeah, he was a good man. He was awesome.
Okay, we'll get to it at the end. Okay, we'll get through this. Okay, so that night at wrestling, no one knows. All they know is that Benoit's dead. That's it. That's all they know. Or all they say they know. I don't think the wrestlers knew. I think someone had a clue because William Regal, I watched that episode that night, but if you go back and listen to it, what William Regal says is kind of like, well, he was one of the greatest wrestlers of all time.
Was it greatest like one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all times? Is that?
Oh, he's definitely one of the greatest technical wrestlers of all time.
I think that might be word for word.
Scott Hall.
Yeah.
He's right up there with Scott Hall as being a technical wrestler and making it look real and taking a bump and making it, but yeah. So Well, if you go back and listen to that, if you guys are interested in wrestling at all, if you're not, you probably ain't fucking listening to this anyway. So, so it was like when they found out, it was just like steroids, HGH. His autopsy comes back, and he has 10 times the amount of testosterone in his system that the normal man his age has.
Yeah,
because it got to the point where his body stopped producing it.
Yeah.
Wouldn't produce it. And the wellness check from the WWE would ban you from testosterone unless a doctor prescribed it. So, let's have at it. It's only for your health. So, Dr. Aston was charged with overprescribing many wrestlers who used him.
But it wasn't Benoit that. He was not on that list. I think the thing that got
Benoit was on the list. Oh yeah,
was he?
Definitely.
Okay.
Oh yeah. Definitely. Yes.
From what I saw, Benoit was not on the list, but there was another prescription that he prescribed to a lady, young woman.
You listened to Jericho on Vice, and Benoit just about demolished wrestling. He just about destroyed it. He almost destroyed the thing that he loved with what he did.
Well. He didn't do it on purpose, and no,
it wasn't not. No, everybody that knew him knew that wasn't him. It was, I think. Well, we'll get into it here in just a second. But Nancy had been after him to quit steroids for quite some time. Trying to get him to stop. Even flushed his stash one time.
Oh, wow.
Took all of his steroids and dumped them down the toilet and flushed them. Well, that's not going to fucking work. He just left for 2 weeks, and he was probably dumping even more into his veins than what he would have been if he was there. But then his life insurance policy was not made out to Nancy and her son. It was made out to his ex-wife and his other 2 kids, which was a $250,000 life insurance thing, which even when she found out about, he said he wouldn't change. He wasn't going to change it.
Right.
So I mean, so many. If you want to get online and read those text messages, man, go ahead. It's just fucking too much for me. So much.
I get it because I want to take care of my kids too. So.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure. There were so many arguments. Like I said, there were so many text messages. You can look them up online. You could find the text threads between him and Nancy, and
yeah.
She was a lady that wouldn't take shit off anybody. She was a fucking wrestler too. She was in the wrestling organization. She knew what was going on, but he wouldn't change it. So all sorts of speculation in the media and all of it. The majority of it was like steroids.
The thing is like, okay, this guy's making serious fucking money. So what's $250,000?
At this time, yeah.
What the fuck is $250,000 life insurance policy? It's nothing compared to what
it is. It is to his ex-wife and those kids. It's not
right,
to Nancy,
but not to Nancy.
Yeah,
and yeah. They're set. As long as they don't waste,
they'll be fine.
Everything. Yeah, they're good. So
I get. They were living in a $900,000 house in that day.
They still had the other house that never sold yet, correct? So
I don't know if it's sold. Yeah, exactly. So
they're set.
He's got money. But when they came through the house, after the wellness check was put out, they're like, we've got one of our wrestlers who isn't coming in, and he lives here.
Right.
So they go in, they find the bodies, and there's all sorts of speculation in the media, and most of it is steroids. Most of it at this time, all steroids. Oh, it's all about steroids. Everything's about steroids. But I think more of it had to do with CTE, which Chris Nowinski was a wrestler. And he had about, 6 concussions, and then he left wrestling, and he started doing studies on this stuff, on CTE. And Benoit had actually sat down with him and asked him. He was like, well, what's the deal with the concussions, how many of you had? And he goes, I think 6. And he asked Benoit how many he had, and he was like,
I have no idea.
Count them.
Yeah. Now, Chris Benoit used to take chairs to his forehead.
Oh, chair shots. Yeah. Oh, all of them did.
No. But like that was his preferred method, was to the forehead, correct?
Well, that's all their preferred method. That's how you took it. That's the hardest part of your head. That's where you take it. You don't put your hands up to block it, because then you're a pussy in the wrestling back in the day.
And you might break your hands too.
Well, they didn't care about their hands. If you take a chair shot. If you bleed, you look cooler.
Yeah.
It's as if they hit you with the edge, with like the rim of the chair, and it slices you open or busts you open. You look cooler. You're tougher for taking that. And that's what they did.
And that's what sells it even more. Blood.
Yeah, that was the game. And
blood makes the grass grow, Matt.
And don't sit there and think Vince McMahon didn't fucking know. He fucking knew.
He totally fucking knew. He's a fucking piece of shit.
Well, yeah, but wrestling was good back then. Now it sucks. It's not even worth watching.
Because you can't. Because now they won't let these guys get concussed anymore. Yeah, like Rick Foley. Well, Nick Foley's a perfect example of that. You know.
Yeah, but Mick Foley's smart as shit. He's smart as hell. You sit down and talk. He is an outlier with the whole wrestling thing, because it was like talking to the Taker about throwing him off the Hell in Cell, and Mick's just like, no, throw me.
Yeah.
Put me.
It'll look fucking cool. Let's do it.
Yeah, it'll look great. Put me through that.
Yeah.
Losing teeth. Stuck his tongue out I think he stuck his tongue out through his upper lip. He had such a bad bust through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's a wrestler, man.
Yeah.
You want to be a wrestler, be a wrestler. It's like, that's what you're signing up for, my man.
Yeah.
That's the thing, though. The woman and the boy didn't have anything to do with it. But they said when they went through the house that there was a small pharmacy worth of fucking drugs in that place. It was just like, so much steroids, Somas.
Now, am I wrong? Am I wrong? And I listened to a few podcasts. I looked on Wikipedia. 6 times the normal testosterone level of a man his age. 10. Yeah, I was wrong.
That was 10 times.
And then if he's on that, and he's also on all this other shit.
Yeah, it was 10 times. Yeah, because the fucking, like I said, the highest I seen his height was 5'11", but he wasn't fucking 5'11". I'm gonna go 5'8". So I'm gonna say he was 5'6", because Andre the Giant came out there and they're like, oh, he's 7'2", but they always added 2 inches and 50 pounds. So
you can do that. You can do that with boots. Yeah.
Yeah.
2 inches. 2 inches is with boots is pretty easy to do. So,
well, his thing was he knew he was small, so it's just get as big as I can, be as fast as I can, be as ruthless as I can, and
be as technical as I can.
Yep. So technical, so good. Like I said, right up there with Scott Hall as a technical wrestler, in my opinion. Just so good, so good. Whatever he did.
I'll tell you what.
So they talk about the Hall of Fame. Like, should he be in the Hall of Fame? No, he shouldn't, because that's gonna. His wife should. His wife should.
Yeah.
She should. She should. Nancy should definitely be in the Hall of Fame, because she was opening doors for all this shit. Like, just like the valet, fucking whatever. But they called it valet. Then you get, whatever. But man, she was so good. She was so. If you guys go back and watch some of those videos of her, just
good shit.
Good. Yeah, she kicks some ass. She's pretty good.
Well, so this is
heartbreaking as fuck is what it is for me.
Yeah.
I decided to do this just to get it out of the way so I didn't get asked to do it later. I assumed it was coming. I even brought out my Montreal Expos hat. Just to get the Crippler out of the way. I wore it when I done Rocktario.
He was a headbutter, right? Like that was his thing. He was a headbutter.
Well, he got that from the Dynamite Kid. That's what he did. He would jump off the top ropes and headbutt you in the heart, and that was his thing.
Yeah.
And how you take that is you take it. You take that bump.
That's the bump.
Yeah, and then it got to the point where it was like there was no way pushing him over. He couldn't get pushed over. So to get pushed over means you're working with other dudes. And basically Benoit pushed other people over. Nobody was pushing him over because he made everybody look good no matter what. If he was wrestling with Benoit, it looked real. It was good. Like I said, when I seen, he was never one of the dudes that I was like, oh, he's my favorite wrestler. But every time I see him coming down the ramp, I was like, we're gonna have a good match. This is going to be good. This is going to be fun.
Yeah. Well, it's this really, really sad story, and the whole deal with the concussion, that it's huge in the NFL right now.
Yeah. Well.
And even though wrestling is fake, folks, I'm sorry. It's fake. Look at me in the face right now.
It's still real to me, damn it. Have you heard that?
It's fake as fuck. But it's entertaining.
Well, you got to calm down on the fake. It's scripted. Just say it's scripted.
It's scripted.
It's not fake. It still fucking hurts. There's still a lot of pain involved in it. I mean, you got to know how to take bumps. Even going off those ropes.
People still bleed. Yeah.
Yeah. Even they throw you off the ropes. If you don't know how to do that, you've never done it before,
you're fucked.
It's not going to fucking hurt. Yeah.
A lot. Not a little. A lot.
And there's so many wrestlers that I might get into some more later because I love wrestling. Or I used to. I don't like it anymore. I think it's shit now. I think it's garbage.
I haven't. I'm going to be honest with you. I haven't watched a wrestling match in 15 years.
Probably. Yeah, because you didn't know most of the people I was bringing up. I thought you would, but it's fine.
Nope. I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't get super into it because I was going to bring up a bunch of other stuff, but fuck, I don't even know how long this episode is right now. And I was like, I don't want to do 3 episodes on Chris Benoit, but I probably could have done 2. Shit.
Fuck it.
I wanted the majority of it to be on me loving wrestling back in the day and how good a wrestler he was.
Yeah.
And a little bit less about the traumatic shit.
Well, I mean, I think we should all just blame Vince McMahon for all the traumatic shit because
he prospered off of all of it.
Yeah, he's still making
there's no one thing.
Millions every fucking WrestleMania. Every time you fucking order a pay-per-view, man, you put money in that motherfucker's pocket.
No, there's not one wrestler's death that he still isn't putting money in his pocket from.
Nope. And there's been so many.
How many did I name just in this episode? And that wasn't all of them.
At least
named
8 to 10, somewhere in there.
I only named a few because I was going through searching like the year. I was like, okay, well, Eddie Guerrero died here, and how many people died? And I was just like, fuck, I skipped so many just because I didn't think people would know their name. I got fucking, 14 pieces of paper down here at my feet. I just went through.
You didn't crumble them up, though, and throw them over your back. That's the best part.
I'm going to keep it just in case something goes wrong with this recording.
Okay. Fair enough. Let me tell you something, brother. That's it for this week, but we'll see you next week. Until then, I'm Zach.
I'm Spar, brother.
And we'll see you next Tuesday. Later.
It's evil! Don't touch it!
I was with you.
They're coming to get you. What a tower of grace.
Hello, Mr. Fancy